Joining us now is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, also a member of the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe. Senator Whitehouse, thank you so much for making time tonight. I know it's been a very long day.
Good to be with you, and great to hear about my colleague and friend John Warner's letter. That's important.
It's important and it's timely. I wonder if you think it will be influential, or what things might be influential in terms of your Republican colleagues weighing this decision tonight.
No, I think the forces of influence are primarily fear of retribution by President Trump and by his team, fear of having the Republican base turned against them, and fear of Mitch McConnell and the donors behind him. Against that, I think that these guys are willing to jump out of the hot pan into the fire of public scrutiny of why it is that for the first time in history we're going to have a Senate impeachment trial with no witnesses.
What do you anticipate in terms of what else is going to happen in the trial? Obviously, we're waiting on news from individual senators about how they're going to vote on that witness question. Do you expect that there will be any other motions or any other, I guess not resolutions, but any other amendments to the resolution or any other things that the Senate will be voting on beyond the witness question?
We will see. The witness question, I think, is designed to close off further amendments, whether spontaneous efforts to push for other rulings will be ruled out of order or not is still an open question and requires the parliamentarian to rule. But it is very clear that the marching orders are to shut this thing down, have no witnesses, get out of here, and do it before the Super Bowl, under that long-standing constitutional rule for impeachments that it needs to be done by the Super Bowl.
Sheldon, it's Claire. You mentioned the retribution by the president and turning the base against Republicans, but you also mentioned the power of Mitch McConnell and his super PAC. I don't think people have really talked about that this week. Can you give us your thumbnail as to why Citizens United has, in fact, fundamentally changed the Senate, and what the Citizens United decision does to Mitch McConnell's power in moments like this?
Well, as you remember, Claire, there are probably a handful, maybe 6 to 10 major Republican donor interests, all of whom are now able to spend unlimited money in politics, and not only that, hide that it's them when they spend that unlimited money in politics. And they talk to each other, and they route their efforts through the leader's office, so he becomes the spigot through which huge amounts of Republican election money flow. And he can turn that on, and he can turn that off. We saw particularly back when our colleagues Russ Feingold, Evan Bayh, and Governor Strickland were all running, and he was able to deploy early, huge money, way early in their races, anonymous money, and basically strafe them while they were still on the ground before they could get their campaigns up in the air. And as you'll recall, they were all three leading in the polls when they got started. But after that early dark money strafing, all three races were lost, leaving Mitch McConnell as majority leader.
Senator Whitehouse, since we have been speaking with you, we just got word from the first Republican senator to definitively say so. Senator Susan Collins of Maine says that she will vote in favor of witnesses. Her statement just released just a moment ago, quote, "I will vote in support of the motion to allow witnesses and documents to be subpoenaed." That is the top line. She's put out a longer statement explaining her decision. But let me get your reaction to that.
Well, one of the things that Mitch McConnell has to do to manage his caucus and to give his members the best chance of re-election is to give them what we refer to as a hall pass, which is permission to vote against the leadership, but never in numbers sufficient enough to affect the outcome. And the people who are in the greatest harm or most urgently need the hall pass are the ones who get it. And that, I think, is what you see when you look at this performance tonight.
Senator Whitehouse, in terms of your take on this. You're clearly, I'm reading that you clearly feel like you know where this is going, that there will be just enough Republicans, even if it's only one, just enough Republicans to vote no to this to protect themselves. But Senator McConnell has had this firmly in his grasp. Do you think that he's had this firmly in his grasp all along? Do you think that this sort of fix has been in from the beginning? Or do you think that there has been evolution over the course of this trial and that the trial, in fact, has mattered?
I think there have been a few wobbles. I think the Bolton news shook Republicans, but I think they did the calculation that the immediate hazard is to cross Trump, cross Mitch McConnell, and cross the big donor bloc, and the penalty for that gets imposed right away. The later penalty of voting against a fair trial, against a real trial, against witnesses will be assessed in months ahead as voters look at how the Republicans handle this. But I think it's a common political instinct to duck the immediate hazard, even if it puts you into peril for a later hazard. Just face that when the day comes. And I think that's the calculus that never changed throughout this entire trial.
Senator, one of the things that you and other senators underscored in your questions, and that we heard a lot of discussion about today from the House managers, was the argument from the president's counsel, Professor Dershowitz, that was in fact described as one of his co-counsels tonight as radical. This claim from from Mr. Dershowitz that so long as a president is trying to get reelected, that's enough of a justification for him to condition an act of the U.S. government on some sort of retributive favor that will help his reelection effort. Because that is being cited as the president's defense in this impeachment, are you at all worried that that has effectively set a new bar for the Trump administration in terms of what it thinks is legal about the president's behavior and what they might feel is sort of pre-cleared in terms of his behavior between now and the election?
Yeah, I don't really think so. I think the concern about precedent, I feel at least, is a little bit overwrought. I think even on the Republican side, they're eye-rolling at Dershowitz's testimony. He was all over the lot. We've actually been teasing Elizabeth Warren that the reputation of Harvard Law School was in a free fall through all of this, and she'd have to get to work to clean it up. So, you know, it hasn't been a great moment for Alan Dershowitz. He basically provided, I'm a Harvard Law School professor, and here's what I'm willing to say in order to get in front of the Senate and be on TV. But it didn't stand up to legal scrutiny. It didn't stand up to the principles or precedents of the Senate. And in many cases, it wasn't even internally coherent. So I don't think he leaves much of a trace behind him here in the Senate.
Do you think that the president ends up benefiting from an acquittal in this impeachment, or do you think the president politically ends up suffering from having been impeached?
I think there's a hit for having been impeached. I think there's another hit for having had to cook the trial in order to get himself acquitted. And I think there's a continuing drag of evidence as more things come out that show just how badly fixed this was. On the other hand, Republicans love and live by the art of grievance, and he is a master at packaging grievance and marketing it to his base. And this is the epic grievance. The wicked Democrats have come after me when all I tried to do was to sell out our national interests, to get our Ukrainian ally over a barrel and have them cook up a fake investigation to help me in my election.
Senator Sheldon, Whitehouse Democrat of Rhode Island. Sir, it's a real privilege to have you with us tonight. Thanks for making time.
No, it's great to be with you. Thank you.